I rise like a bird, like a phoenix from the ashes. I rise like a firm oak from the cool, cool grass. I rise from the mighty water's current, pulling under. I rise from the valleys to the mountains. Be the wonders. Rise, oh, I rise. I rise, oh, I rise. Oh, I rise in the fingers of a fire reaching out. I rise in the dawning, burning brighter than the sun. I rise, I am change that sparks the truth. I am worthy of love, so I rise. I am worthy to rise above. Rise, oh, I rise. I rise, oh, I rise. Oh, little voice pushes even further. Tell myself here's the chance to grow. Loving arms will be there at the surrender. Feel it now, so go, go, go. And rise, oh, I rise. I rise, oh, I rise. Oh, I rise to the beat of my heart's true inner calling. I rise to be more than what I thought that I could be. I rise with awareness to a greatness that inspires. I rise with a passion, with a purpose for higher. Rise, oh, I rise. I rise, oh, I rise. Oh,
Thank you, Millie. Wow, and thank you, because you invite us here and then I get to experience that. I got to experience that in the car on the way here. It's just so wonderful that we get this opportunity to coordinate and to create with this community. Thank you for making that possible in our lives. And Millie, thank you for that song. The title for today's talk is I Rise with the Will of God. And I asked Millie, because we really like to create these services together, and I asked her, what's the song? She goes, I Rise. And that wasn't what I was working on, but I thought, okay, I can go with that. What's the chorus of that song? What's the meat of that? And she sang me the chorus, and she sang, I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise, I rise. And I thought, oh, well, okay, that's something I can work with. I rise with the will of God. Now let me tell you from the get-go, there's a hidden message in this affirmation. I rise. In unity, we have the ability to do something, and you might not know this because you are in a unity community, but we have the ability to do something that's precious to us, that traditional Orthodox Christian churches don't do, at least not that I have perceived, that I have felt. And what we are is we are present. We gift our presence to each other. We stand and are aware of the Christ within the other and within ourselves, and we commune with that Christ. In that we are present. And the hidden message in I rise with God's will is I relax inside and stay engaged. Rise, R-I-S-E. I relax inside and stay engaged with the presence that is right there, that's palpable, that I can feel. I'm a chaplain in a hospital, and when I was going through my training, this is something that even though I didn't know all of the details that I needed to know to start out with, I could be present with people. And you know, that's usually all anybody needs, is somebody to be present with them. And we do that in unity naturally, by recognizing that Christ within. I relax inside, because you know what? There's a whole bunch of appearances out there. There's a whole bunch of things that look like challenges. And I relax inside and I stay engaged with the person, the Christness that is there. I relax inside and I stay engaged with God's will. Recently, I had an experience where a 90-year-old woman was brought into the ER and then into the ICU, and it was a devastating circumstance. The neurosurgeon called me in to sit with the family as he delivered the news that this woman wasn't going to make it. And her 3 grandsons were there already, and they were so upset, and I began passing out tissues and touching them softly and doing whatever I could to minister to them. And I asked them, is there anybody that I can call for you? Is there anyone else who needs to come to the hospital? And they said that their father was on his way, and right then he walked up. Now, Ben was one of those hippie type looking people, long gray hair and a denim jacket and some other things that made me think that maybe he was even a Vietnam vet. And he walked up, immediately assessed the situation, and began circling the ICU. And he would go from room to room. He was talking on his cell phone. He wasn't paying attention to what was going on in the rooms, but he was making the staff nervous because they get really uptight about HIPAA and privacy and all those kinds of things. So they asked me to go take care of Ben. And I kind of gently corralled him over. We found ourselves standing at the nurse's station. And I was listening as he was finishing up on his phone conversation, and then once he put the phone away, he looked at me, and he knew I was the chaplain, and he said, "It's God's will. It's God's will." And right there, I had to relax inside and stay engaged. We hear these words so often in the world, it's God's will. And perhaps it's a way to avoid the emotions that are just welling up within us that are just so overwhelming in a place of crisis. But to place everything in the words, it's God's will, is a little difficult for me to hear. To think that there's a God out there that has it all planned out, and that when bad things happen, that God that I see as a loving energy has somehow planned that this thing would happen. I can't go there. And I had to stay engaged with Ben. That same day, I visited a woman who her baby had died in utero. And she also said, it's the will of God. And I just had to stay present with her. You know, it's in these times, these difficult times, that it's not my place to say, oh, well, is it really the will of God? Is that, yeah, no. My job is to stay present, to give care and compassion And so I said, you're probably right. Yeah, I'm so sad. I'm so sorry. This is so devastating. And yes, maybe it is. We are metaphysical Christians. Did you know you could use that word? You could say, when people say, what are you? And you say, I go to Unity, and they kind of go, I am a metaphysical Christian. And what that means is that I believe in the fundamental message of Jesus Christ as love and compassion and taking care of the oppressed and sharing love and bringing peace to the world. And I look at the Bible metaphysically. I look for the stories in the Bible that are going to fill my soul with wisdom. I am a metaphysical Christian. And as a metaphysical Christian, it's probably something worth looking at. What does it mean to say it's God's will? Because I'll tell you, I was at the church this week and I was in a class and someone was talking about a very difficult situation in their life with their younger brother, and I heard her say, it's God's will. Relax inside. Stay engaged. What does that mean to a metaphysical Christian that it's God's will? Well, in Unity, we talk about the difference between the absolute and the relative. Charles Fillmore, in The Revealing Word, he writes about the absolute realm as the ultimate creative mind. It's the source of all things. It's unconditioned, unlimited, unrestricted, and free from all limitations. Our God is one mind. Our God is unrestricted, free from all limitations. And that means that nothing changes in the absolute realm. It's the realm of pure thought. In the absolute realm, God's will for us is perfect good. It's perfect love. It's health and wholeness. God's will is that 90-year-old grandmother live out her days, and that when she comes to the end of her life, she's surrounded by her family who loves her, who holds her hand as she gently releases, and everyone's able to say goodbye. It's God's will that that young mother take her baby home from the hospital and have a wholesome family to raise that baby and a community of love to teach that child to grow and to prosper in every possible way. God's will for us is absolute good. And yet we live in the relative world. We live in the world where things change. Now, please, before you go to the outside God, that there's like this absolute realm that's over here, and we live in the relative world over here where stuff happens and there's challenges. God is omnipresent. This absolute goodness of God is present in and through every bit of our life, every bit of our body. And we move and we change in the relative world. As metaphysical Christians, we're called to work with this double vision all of the time, to recognize that there's stuff that goes on in the world, that we get tossed on the seas of chaos and challenge, and that it's a really good idea to put down an anchor of belief and understanding faith before that ship gets tossed about. And that's what we're doing today. We're looking at this idea of God's will. I relax inside and stay engaged, no matter what's going on out here. It's in the relative world that people get to make choices. We each one have free will. When we talk about the Christ within, we talk about those divine powers and faculties that are within us, and one of them is will. When we talk about the 12 powers, we have faith, love, order, wisdom, power, life, understanding, and strength. will, imagination, release, and zeal, passion for life. Those are the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore talked about, and that he said are the Christ within us. We have within us the faculty of will, which is our ability to choose and decide, to command and lead. We each one have free will. So there's the absolute will of God that is always for our highest good. And I'm not going to, it's tempting to say, and the relative, because we think this way, but the relative realm, the relative will of God. We each have our own free will. And as we choose more and more often to express the positive, good will of God through the use of our own free will, we are manifesting the relative will of God here on earth. Wow. I think it's pretty cool being a metaphysical Christian. That's something that works for me, because I don't have to have some kind of God out there that preordained everything. And I can say that, yes, it is God's will. Not when terrible things happen. It's God's will that when terrible things happen, I call upon that Christ within me. I rise. I relax inside and I stay engaged. And I express courage and strength. I express compassion and hope and inspiration in the face of the seas of chaos. Using my relative free will, I make choices on how I'm going to show up. And through making those choices, I express the relative will of God in the world. God's will for us is for ultimate, absolute, unchangeable good, that we anchor that in our lives. There are people in the relative world that make choices that look pretty negative. There are people who make choices in their lives that, when crystallized in thought, can look like evil. In the face of adversity is when we get called forth. And that evil is not some other power, some other force. It is the human free will to make choices based on crystallized error thought. And what we can do is we can make those choices for the Christ. For example, war. Can we all agree that war is a collective consciousness thought? That even if we don't want war in our life, there's a culture and a consciousness that has gone on for thousands of years that has crystallized into the thought of war. And yet, in the face of war, even those of us in Kansas, which, it affects us here. People think Kansas is way far away. Well, we got a base right here. We can be called higher. We can be called through the Christ. We can exhibit strength and compassion